So some agencies have sent their employees home and quarantined them for 14 days. How do they get paid during that quarantine, or do they get paid?
From my perspective, there's a number of questions that have to be asked first. So we've had a number of situations where people have had a cough or felt ill. We've also had people who have come home from vacation where upon arriving or returning back to Minnesota, they were advised by their entity to self-quarantine for 14 days. Unfortunately, if you're not ill and are just self-quarantining, then that is not covered under the Minnesota Workers' Compensation Act, and they very well may not be entitled to those benefits. If, however, they are ill but don't have COVID-19, in my opinion, there is still a claim potentially under the workers' compensation for those medical expenses and the wage loss during that self-quarantine time. Everyone assumes it's only 14 days, but it very well could turn into weeks, if not months, that you will have to self-quarantine depending upon your individual entity. And then the question is, okay, who's going to pay for that? In my opinion, an argument can be made under the Minnesota Workers' Compensation Act that in fact they are still responsible to pay for that if you have what I would call an infectious disease, even like the flu or a cold, and we can argue that in fact it's related. And I do believe that there's going to be some arguments in favor of employees in those situations where they have an illness, they want to work, but they're being prevented from their department. So I think each case has to be evaluated individually, but I would not assume that you must use your sick or vacation time in that situation.
And it's possible that there are other laws that could provide some wage loss benefits or other emergency type benefits in that situation. So even if work comp doesn't apply, other laws may be available to provide some of those additional benefits or protections.